On the theme of caregiving, our next speaker today is going to be Jenny Kwak, who is going to share with us strategies for our caregivers so that they can take care of themselves and have their own well being so that they have the energy to support their loved ones through their journey. Jenny is a licensed social worker with over 20 years' experience working with patients with complex medical and psychological issues, and currently serves as a behavioral health clinician in the Department of Radiation Oncology. So I'm going to pull up your slides, Jenny, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Heather, for having me. And I can only say that those three speakers, Donna, Danae, and Claudia, were so moving that I started to grab the Kleenex myself and got a little tearful. So it's right here, kind of a little wet, and I had to make sure my makeup wasn't all smeared all over my face. So first of all, and I like really what Danae, I think as a yoga instructor did, was focus on the breath. So if you allow me, I also want to just do a slight stretch so I also get centered in my body and have everybody else kind of do that too, because these are talks we're giving back to back, and I just kind of want us to sit with it, that we can just lift our arms and breathe, hold our chair on the sides, and then shift side to side for a moment. And you can even tilt your head and just shrug your shoulders for a moment. Okay. And also, just before we start, I want us to be able to just sit in this moment to relax and to be aware of just the amazing talks we've already been able to listen to so far. This has been a moving experience for me. As a radiation oncology behavioral health clinician at Stanford, I developed this role for the last year and a half. And I've also worked in the cancer center in the infusion treatment area as well. I worked there for 5 years before coming to radiation, and I did do caregiver groups, support groups for blood and marrow transplant patients and their loved ones. And I know that these kind of mindfulness-based stress reduction strategies and coping strategies that the other caregivers mentioned as well is so important to get through these very, very challenging times. I have to say, I also want to give a shout out to Allison Jensen and Dr. Beadle. From the very first day or second day of my position, they were very supportive and said, yes, we are going to keep you busy. There's a lot of patients that need mental health support during these times. I have to say that as an oncology social worker, I work with many people. Dr. Lajani and Nicole Barr, who spoke earlier, are part of the psychosocial oncology team, along with 6 outpatient social workers. And Anyani Partida is going to be speaking later on a panel. I know she's joining for this. She is one of the outpatient head and neck oncology social workers. So as a team, we work together. I provide brief therapy for cancer patients and other caregiver support using evidence-based therapeutic modalities. And I've been using mindfulness-based stress reduction strategies for over 20 years in my work. I've been a licensed clinical social worker and a social worker for 30 years, but going on 15 at Stanford. So I have to say that this work is so valuable to me, and I appreciate all the caregivers who've joined and all the patients who've joined this symposium. Next slide, Heather. So the pandemic brought social unrest and increased anxiety. COVID plus cancer, we have a need for new tools. So just looking at this, I have to say, the therapy toolbox, we have to think of everything that we put in that toolbox for ourselves. And mindfulness-based stress reduction and cognitive behavioral therapy are the most evidence-based tools that I use. I also use other therapeutic modalities with my patients, including acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, internal family systems work. And I have to say that the modalities I use, I try to tailor it to the patient because each person's going to come to the need differently. The need for support can, present itself. Somebody may benefit more from mindfulness and meditation or body scan work, and other people really like doing cognitive behavioral therapy homework, and they need to be task oriented. So that is kind of the work that I do. I have to say also that during 2020, at the start of the pandemic, which is, over a year now, resilience and coping strategies for patients and families continue to be needed greatly, including the staff here at Stanford. I've shared many of these self-care segments through our radiation oncology podcast. And now more than ever, now that we still have vaccination, but other kind of, issues with the virus, we still have a lot of issues that we do need support. We need to be aware of how to decrease our own anxiety when there's social unrest, increased anxiety for, political unrest and our divisiveness. And I have to say also that COVID plus cancer, the need for new tools is for everybody. It's not just for patients and caregivers, it's for us. With the staff, I've been using tools such as the last slide that I'll show is based on Imagery, and it's called the Improve the Moment, which is a dialectical behavioral therapy tool. So I definitely will share that. Which each of the speakers that just spoke, I was writing down furiously what they were offering, because each had their own way of caregiving. And I myself was a caregiver to my mother. And so I do know how that was to kind of be present with her, but also being able to take care of myself. By using mindfulness-based stress reduction, we can recognize our own discomfort and judgments and instill compassion for ourselves and others. The Buddhist practice of meditation has been adapted with Western science by leaders in the field of MBSR like John Kabat-Zinn, Deepak Chopra, and well-known people in the Bay Area like our own Dr. James Doty and Jack Kornfield. Stanford has been researching on the benefits in science of compassion. There is also evidence-based meditation. The Dalai Lama is a co-founder of the Compassion Center at Stanford, along with Dr. Doty, and supports mindfulness for divided communities and even for the police force. So trainers at the center-led Compassion Center, I've personally practiced this since 2001 when I was working at Kaiser, and I took an 8-week course there. And I highly recommend downloading apps like the Calm app, Deepak Chopra's app, Headspace, Insight app, anything to learn more about meditation and its benefits. I also promote mindfulness and wellness because the mind and body are so intertwined, as we all know. We can't promote physical health for our patients or our loved ones without promoting mental health. So part of my role, I also feel very committed to destigmatizing mental illness. The whole body, mind, body health is focused for all of us. So as we're, thinking of meditations, being aware of the loving kindness meditation is very powerful for me. Having a positive regard for others, but also you can have compassion for others like strangers, but sometimes you forget to have compassion for yourself. So remember, when you're doing these types of meditations or belief in helping others, always turn that back to yourself. One of the nurses I worked with in the infusion treatment area, Tina, she always said, do belly breathing so that we can provide more relaxed care before seeing a patient. So when we do diaphragmatic breathing, our own voice drops and we can calm ourselves and our patients. So like that, the loving kindness meditation can resonate with all the work that we do. It's the essence of caregiving for others and ourselves, to have empathy for their experience and compassion for them and others. Next slide, Heather. So as I was saying earlier, before the pandemic, on the left side, people were rushing around. They were so busy with multitasking and so busy with their work that the pandemic, if anything, that silver lining that was mentioned, could help us to slow down. On the right side of the scale is yoga, meditation, sleep, all of those relaxation and stress reduction activities that we all need to benefit from. I can only say that, the start of the pandemic myself, I felt like an asthma flare. I felt very anxious, and I had to practice meditation once or twice a day just to get myself regulated to be able to do this work, right? So that is very, very key. I encourage everybody to learn these tools. It's not something that I take lightly. We can all drown at times or save each other, one person at a time. That is what I believe with self-care. And notice how our thoughts are impacting our moods. This is why acceptance commitment therapy, DBT, CBT, all these tools I use with my patients is because I think it can improve mood. And then, of course, having compassion for each other is key. When I'm referred patients and caregivers throughout the Cancer Center, I see how much caregivers give of themselves and to their loved ones. So the next slide, Heather, I really want this to be read. Everybody take a look at this. And you can say this for yourself, say this in front of your partner, say this to your patients too. I mean, and healthcare providers who are joining, I believe this equally, that we have the right to take care of ourselves. This is not an act of selfishness. It will give me the capacity to take better care of my loved one or my patients, right? Our loved ones are our patients, to maintain facets of my own life, to get angry, depressed, and express other difficult emotions. I think that what we heard earlier was a lot of difficult emotions, and it's brave to share that. To receive, I'm sorry, I didn't finish, Heather. To receive consideration, affection, forgiveness, and acceptance, and to protect my individuality and my right to make a life for myself that will sustain me. So just sit with that for a moment, and then we'll go to the next slide. Because caregiving is hard and sometimes underappreciated. Caregivers are the largest unpaid labor force in the country. So that Caregiver Bill of Rights that I showed earlier was from the Family Caregiver Alliance. I really do believe that we all need to take a moment to actually think, how confident are we to overcome obstacles? How confident are we to think of ourselves as strong and resilient people, right? When we have compassion for ourselves and others, we're better equipped to provide support. And who are our caregivers in our family? As I said earlier, I was a caregiver for my mother who had Alzheimer's, and for the last 5 years of her life, our family really had to come together to provide that care for each other in order to continue to care for her before she passed. It was probably the greatest effort as a family to unite. And so this is a personal topic. Caregiving really resonates with me. I have an example. Before I go into this improved moment, I have a little bit of time, and I really want to talk about a patient. This is not his real name or his caregiver's real name, but I'll call him Bob. And he had difficulty coping with his head and neck cancer and the treatment, the chemo, radiation. He said he wanted to give up so many times. So his partner, who I'll call Dolly, because I like Dolly Parton, said that as a nurse in her own career, she had taken care of so many people, but it was so hard to take care of him. And in the process, she got sick herself. And she said her mental and physical health was the worst it's ever been. On top of that, they weren't from California, and losing their local support, they were feeling more frustrated with each other. And then, of course, Bob, who was always the strong one in the relationship and the breadwinner and the head of household, he felt more and more depressed, and he had never needed so much support because he was hopeless. He said he didn't want to eat or drink and move, and he needed to have the strength to continue with the intense chemo and radiation daily. So Dolly was overwhelmed, as was the patient. So the caregiver said this was the first time she had needed help. She'd not really gone into therapy much, and said she needed to know how to be in the role of the caregiver. Her focus now was on increasing energy and activity level for herself too, and she needed to take breaks, get support, and started seeing me for therapy along with her partner. I told her I'll need to continue to follow her weekly. Ended up doing couples work individually and with them together during their 6-week radiation treatment. And then she continued to get therapy when she returned to her home. So this exercise, the improve the moment, a DBT skill, is one of the skills that I try to work with patients and their caregivers in session. So for all of us to take a moment, improve the moment. Imagery is powerful. I stands for imagery. So just for a moment, you can close your eyes, but imagine yourself in a place of nature or wherever you feel the safest and at peace. It can be on a beach or in the forest. M stands for meaning, and meaning for me can be anything that motivates, and your purpose will drive action. P stands for prayer or providing connection. Peace and guidance of a ritual that can calm you. It can serve you anytime, no matter what your faith. R stands for relaxation, and what you do to relax, anything that you find relaxing, like what people mentioned of walking outside, just sitting in the sun. Engage in those behaviors every day. O stands for one thing or moment at a time. Just take a breath now. You can slow down and focus. And V for vacation, it means taking a break and planning it ahead. And it can be brief or scheduled way in advance. Right now, a lot of people are just doing staycations, but just for a moment, just be in that place. And E is for encouragement. Encouragement is needed. Coach yourself and write down your affirmations like, I got this, all crises pass. The work of caregiving can be hard, but it does come with silver linings and rewards. You know, if the stressors are chronic, we have to learn ways to take care of ourselves. It's not easy to have, a loved one with a diagnosis that may shorten their life, sometimes quickly and sometimes not for many years. So being with a patient can be stressful. I think we learn most from our loved ones when they're going through these crises. I know I have learned a lot from my patients, those who have shared their hearts, their stories, their dreams, and their greatest fears. I think deeply about these patients. I love them. And I release them and the energy so that my cup does not run over. I have to learn to replenish my strength and decrease my own burdens and the compassion fatigue that can creep in. So I do read the loving kindness meditation to patients, caregivers, and sometimes staff or support groups, and encourage mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques. This level of breathing together, the diaphragmatic breathing, can really help because the costs are high as a caregiver, and having compassion for one another is key, and knowing that we are all on this journey together. Thank you, Heather, and everybody who's attended. I don't know if we have a little bit of time if people have some questions.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was lovely. I know there was a question about the loving kindness meditation. Can you just describe that a little bit for folks?
Yeah, the loving kindness meditation is based on Tibetan meditation. It's important to be able to also start with yourself and express this idea of being safe and loving towards others, but also to yourself, right? And so there's a level of chanting of, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be at peace. But usually you do also think of others that you have kindness towards and then kind of go to outer circles. So even for those that you may have kind of need to forgive too, right? People that you have been hurt by, you can even start imagining compassion and kindness towards your, strangers, people in the community, and then go to people that in your outer circles that you may have lost touch with. You can actually do my loving kindness meditation. So in the way of doing these levels of the breathing and the words resonating with you, you start to have more compassion for others and then also for yourself. And I do believe that that is very helpful. It's these inner circles and outer circles. When you're thinking of all these caregiver supports that people have, I think sometimes people, have expressed to me that it's hard to ask for help, or even that people that they thought would come forward with help didn't, and so they get a little resentful or sad. And so I like the idea of one of the caregivers who said that she uses Caring Bridge because she doesn't want like the whole world to know of her needs, but she wants those really close to her to be aware, and she wants to ask for help for them. Oh, somebody even tagged the meditation. There's lots of resources for meditation. Through the Cancer Supportive Care Program, we have so many great meditation classes too. So I actually want to give a shout out for that. Jillian Kumagai, who is the staff librarian too, I think she might be one of the people joining. She texted or she emailed me earlier today, and I was like, she also shared so many wonderful meditation resources with me when I was working in the infusion treatment area. So there are so many resources available. If people are into meditation, there's a lot of free apps. There's even, I don't know if it's free or if it was for a bit, on Headspace. There was a cancer um, Headspace meditation section that one of my patients said he really loved. So I think there's a combination, right? Some people don't like meditation, but they may pray or they may find some kind of calming ritual. And I think that's very important. And that's why I use that improve uh, DBT skill, because anybody, can use these things no matter what their faith, religion, ethnic, or anybody can use these tools, right? And so I don't try to market it, or say that it has to be for one type of person or caregiver. And then also for staff, I can say that the people who are joining today, whether they're panelists because they're Stanford healthcare professionals, we all need to be in this process of helping each other more. Any other questions people might have? It says, where can I find these references for future information? I did send Heather like a list of mindfulness resources before that was attached to my Caring for Caregiver talk. I've given this caregiver talk in a variety of ways for actually 5 or 6 different national conferences and symposiums this year because of 2020 was so rough. And one of the talks I gave in January was called Hindsight is 2020, Self-Care Strategies During Trying Times. And that was for cancer survivors. That was uploaded on YouTube, but that was just for the people who were attending that event. So I hope that people who do need to reach out, they can also reach me through this channel if needed. And I appreciate everybody who attended. Any other last minute chats or questions, Heather?
Let's see. I think that was it for right now. Thank you so much. Excellent. So, um,
Oh, what is the name of the podcast? So that's actually through Stanford. It's called Table Talk with Radonk. And it's really for our department. We don't have it, it's not like uploaded to Apple or anything, but our next topic will be on Tuesday. We're going to have a panel on Stop Asian Hate, which is something that I'm going to be on that panel because it has been an incredibly stressful time for my community of API, Asian American and Pacific Islanders who are affected by this.
fabulous. Thank you so much, Jenny. That was really wonderful.
You're welcome, Heather.